Please join me as I discuss the 5 key learnings that I have had since moving away from African cichlids about 4 years ago. Hello, YouTube followers. This is Gian Gourami, aka Half Man, Half Cichlid. Thank you for joining me. I had 20 plus years of African cichlids, and about 4 years ago I started transitioning away from African, starting with Geophagus and Severums. Then about 2.5 years ago I got rid of, on Craigslist, the whole batch. A nice Oriental lady wanted them who had some large aquariums, and so she took the whole batch. So it's been about 2.5 years. I still have a few, though, that are grown as sump babies that carried over from when I had African cichlids breeding in my aquariums, and they have grown up. So, you know, I'm totally converted now, essentially, except for those sump babies. I really enjoyed my 20-some years with Africans, but I'll share with you here today what are the 5 key learnings I've had in transitioning. And in closing, I'd like to say I've never learned so much about the hobby, transitioning into other species and genera, you know, beyond cichlids of fish. I never learned as much about water, about different species, about plants and their requirements. And I can honestly say it's doubled my enjoyment with some of the things I'll share with you today that have been exciting and fulfilling for me with fish other than Africans. And what I was ultimately after from this hobby, which I had been chasing for a while and could not find with Africans, is peace and serenity. And we'll talk about that as we go through the 5 key learnings. So look forward to your comments and enjoy the video. Thank you. Number 1, the first key learning is that you can have beautiful planted tanks after African cichlids. And for me, which I've loved cichlids since I was a kid, you can still have beautiful planted tanks with many different species of cichlids. Let me show you a few examples. 4 out of my 5 aquariums now, by the way, are planted. This is my 200-gallon, which has been planted for about 3 or 4 years, and as you can see, I have Geophagus, Australian rainbows, and also angelfish. The next aquarium is my 340-gallon, which I have just started planting in the last 6 months with a cryptocorn jungle and a lot of species of cichlids. Here's a 45-gallon, which is an angel tank, which has been planted for about a year, and it's doing well. And I might add, without CO2. And moving on to the last planted tank, which is my 50-gallon and most recently planted with Anubias and Java fern, and again angelfish. And I also have a colony of 8 Tanganyikan cichlids in this aquarium, the Neolamprologus lalupi. And again, the cichlids do very, very well with these cichlids. The second key learning since moving away from African cichlids is that I've been able to discover new, colorful, and peaceful fish. And I would still say the majority of my collection and focus is on cichlids, but I have found, cichlids that work with plants, plus quite a number of other fish that work with cichlids. And what I'll do here is share with you some recent shots of some of my favorite fish in my current collection. Walking through my fish room, you'll see Australian rainbows, South American cichlids, you'll see Geophagus, angels. I've got a number of Vieja, different types of gold severums. These are another Australian rainbow, another Geophagus, another species of Vieja, and I love catfish also. A big change, and the reason I originally moved away from African cichlids was, I wanted a peaceful tank. When I came down in the morning or in the evening, I could sit there and just enjoy the aquarium and not have to look at who's beating up who, or worry about finding a dead fish on the bottom of the tank. In fact, I recently did a video, which I'll provide a link to, on jerk fish, with one African, a sump baby, left over in my 340-gallon. This one jerk fish was corralling all of the other fish to the other side of the aquarium, and it was really a pain in the butt for me. And I finally removed him using a small hook and transported him to my my 500-gallon aquarium, where he lives with much, much bigger fish. Again, I invite you to watch my recently posted video, Removing Jerk Fish, which I'll provide a link to at the bottom. The next one is an important one for your budget, too, with planted tanks, more peaceful inhabitants. You can buy juvenile fish. Obviously a lot less expensive. They have places to hide, and they're not going to get immediately killed by African cichlids, which was the case when I tried to introduce Africans into an established tank where there were territories set up by the Africans. Also, and very important, many of the females of other species, even cichlids, Geophagus, Central American, South American, the females are nearly as beautiful as the males, or in some cases even more beautiful than the males. So you can buy juvies and females, no more of this having to buy large, expensive fish, and males only, and paying a huge premium, and which leads into the next point we're going to talk about, is lower mortality. I can honestly say it's very rare that I find a dead fish in my aquariums, and never because of being beat up, body slammed by some of the behaviors I saw and witnessed with my African cichlids. I believe in last year I've only lost a couple fish. So this is quite a change from when I had Africans. When I had Africans, I considered them to have a higher mortality. I believe by their nature they have a shorter lifespan, but there were fish that died from aggression. There were fish that died because they wouldn't eat due to stress. There were fish that died. I found that their dietary problems could often result in significant intestinal problems and eating problems, and they're sitting in the corner and not eating. So overall, this is something that was a big surprise for me, and of course very much appreciated. By the way, my 500 gallon is still large cichlids, many different sizes, and they all get along peacefully. And this, of course, is not a planted tank because of the types. So I'm hopeful that you've learned something from my journey with fish other than African cichlids, with the 5 key learnings that I've shared with you. And again, the intention of this is not to bash Africans. I love my time with African cichlids, but I have found a whole new world in my fish keeping, veering off as I have, as I've described in this video. So again, look forward to your comments and questions, and hope everybody has a great day.